Good morning, Eden. So we're going to now Siman Sadik Aleph, Siman 91 in Basar B'Chalev. So I just want to go through like the layout of the next few weeks and explain what's happening. So this week we're doing the entirety of 91. It seems like a lot because the content is technically a lot, but it to a large degree it's going to be review because Kuf Hey, which we just finished, and Sadik Aleph are almost identical. Other than the fact then that in 105 I was talking about Tarus of Isser and Heter, prohibited and permitted food, and how flavor transfers in various different methods: cooking, touching, grilling, salting, and kavush and pickling. And it's gonna be very similar now in Sadik Aleph, almost the exact same thing, just this time gonna be Basar B'Chalev, which is kind of the way, just why they're doing it this way, instead of going in order and then they're building the blocks of the principles. So principle one, diffusion of flavor, is Kofei and Tzadik Aleph and Tzadik Beis. Good morning. And Tzadik Beis. Tzadik Beis 92 is also going to be in a similar genre. It'll be built on the principles of 105 and 91, but it's going to be much more unique to Basar B'Chalev. Like Hanan, Chatich Hanas and Nevela, it's going to be in 92, and other such things that are unique to Basar B'Chalev, milk and meat is going to come in 92. So this whole week we're going to be doing all of 91, which again, it's long, but it's not going to be difficult. It's almost going to be entirely Chazara, almost. And then the 3 weeks following that, so that would be the week of November 2nd, November 9th, November 16th, is going to be Tzadik Beis, 92, which are new content built on 105 and 91. The sum total of all these three sifim, Kufei, Tzadik Aleph, Tzadik Beis, is all going to be transfusion of flavor. So it's one topic really, and then there's going to be the test. And the test itself includes 3 weeks of Chavzara. So if we finish Tzadik Beis at the end of Pasha Tolis, November 20th, in the next week, November 23rd, and the week of November 30th, and the week of December 7th, is all review.
Really?
It's 3 weeks of review. It's a lot.
That's helpful. Yeah.
It's very helpful. So first of all, I can catch up. You can go online, use their resources. They're much more like, line by line, spoon fed shooting. We can go through all of that. And I don't know.
For Hanukkah? Is that why? No.
No. So actually, they're the program that they originally gave me took off for Hanukkah. I switched it to take off for the secular holidays.
Yeah.
That's when you guys are getting off work.
Yeah.
They designed it for Yeshiva Bacham, we're taking off Hanukkah, and I switched it for taking off during. So which is why December 11th, 12th, that's the test. No, sorry, we're gonna continue learning after this test on the week of December 14th,
Right.
back to the beginning Pei Zayin,
Exactly.
and then a break
Yeah.
from December 21st through January 1st. January 5th, we pick up again. So we're taking off the secular dates because that's people are working and that's the calendar we follow. I figured that would make more sense.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Determined at the beginning.
Sorry?
That's what we determined at the beginning.
Yeah, makes more sense. Now, in terms of Chazara, I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it yet. It's still in 4 weeks from now. I don't know how, maybe we'll keep the class schedule. Maybe we'll figure out some other way of doing reviews. I'm not sure exactly how.
The tests are written, or they're going to be like an oral? Or?
No, written test.
Oh.
It's a written test. It's online. I spoke with them already, and the quizzes they have up now, I have nothing to do with. I have no idea. But I asked to be involved in designing the test so that I know that what we learned here is going to match.
So it's all done through the portal.
Yeah. I'm gonna make sure that I want to review the test with them so that the test matches what we know.
Does it have to be at a certain time that you log in and do it, or it's not like that?
I think it's before.
But I think guess they probably give you a few days and you can do sometime in a few
Yeah.
days.
I think the way it works is that you can't unlock the content of the next class until you've done the test. But that doesn't. I'm not stopping you from walking into the class here. I'm saying it's like you're gonna come here anyway, so I don't know. But whatever, I'm gonna work with them on the test. The Chazara thing, I don't know, but if you have ideas of how we can do Chazara together,
It makes the most sense probably. Whoever can come at these times where there would be a share would sit with the Chavrusa and learn.
Either that or
we ask.
exactly, we could do that. That's a possibility. Okay, well, we'll discuss. That's
I think that,
it's really the easiest for me.
personally. I
personally.
think every Sunday you could do review of Siman and there's 3 Siman. Every Sunday you review of Siman, and Wednesday nights we do are we go.
And the.
We could do that. If there's 3 Simanim, 3 Sundays, we could do each Sunday, I could do a review of each another Siman. Yeah,
And then Wednesdays,
think-
we are asking questions, we're still learning.
I like it.
whatever, We do that.
okay, so I'm gonna put that up in the, that's a good idea. Put that in the poll.
Is it possible to do like a sample test, like in, like before, like when you're in school, you do like, yeah,
I
like.
love those quizzes.
I can ask them.
No, but for more like, no, because the quizzes are kind of random, so they have some of them are like, do you have to? I don't
Okay.
know, like they're not always worded so well.
That's not bad.
So remind me, I'm going to,
Yeah.
and then I'll work with them on those sample
See,
tests as well.
That would be really helpful. Like I said, I will encourage us,
So remind me after the class, I'm gonna reach out to them to talk about that. It's a good idea. And then if I work with them on the sample tests, it'll be, I'm assuming what they can do is they can just give me older tests. I'll review them and then we can do that.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good for review as well. Okay, very good. Okay, so again, this week we're doing Siman 91, Tzadik Aleph, which is Basar B'cholav. Again, mostly review of 105 to a large degree with some added details specific to Basar B'cholav. And some added details that actually we made reference to when we learned 105, but they weren't in the text, but we made references to them from here, as you saw in the summaries, where sometimes it says, as you already read in 91, the Rama says X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Right, you've seen a lot of that.
Yeah.
So now you're going to see some of those. So we know already
You're
the
gonna
stuff.
see a lot of IN 105.
You'll see some of that, but more the other way because the Shulchan Aruch is written
Right.
where you're reading in order, right?
Yeah.
So 105, they'll rely on. It still makes more sense to learn 105 before 91, as you'll see anyway. Okay, so let's go through some of the things. So first of all, you have in Sif 1 and 2. That's going to be the questions of milk and meat touching that are cold.
Probably dry as well, right?
That are dry and cold. Yeah. Which did not come up in 105, I don't think. All right, it didn't mention it directly. I don't remember. I don't think it talked about it if it had to touching cold there. But here it does. And this is actually very common in a kitchen. Because you have milk, you have kosher milk, you have kosher meat, and you have a refrigerator. And presumably you don't have two, I don't know, maybe you do have, but I don't think you have two refrigerators, one for milk and one for meat, right? So there's no concern whatsoever, other than the person has to wash them off before they eat because there's no transference of flavor. We know that already. There's no conductor to extract flavor from one thing to the next, and therefore with cold, it's only a question of rinsing off the area that was touched, so that there shouldn't be anything. But nonetheless, lechatchila, one shouldn't do that. In the first instance, one shouldn't do that, especially if you're putting, like, let's say, milk food onto a fleishik dish, even though they're both cold. One shouldn't do it in the first instance, lest you forget to rinse it off. But you'll look out for some of the discussion around right. Like, for example, if you put a raw piece of meat, which you're anyways going to wash, the whole concern of putting not putting the milk on the meat plate is because you might forget to wash it, but something you're going to be washing anyway, then you can even do that. Like putting a raw steak on a milk counter, for example. You're anyways going to wash that steak before you eat it. So in theory, it's fine.
But if you don't wash it before you eat it.
It's raw, I think.
Oh,
It's raw. Maybe you're not going to wash it before you put it on the grill?
Yeah.
Maybe. Yes, then you shouldn't. But even so, you want to be careful because if you have to make sure the actual, this is all the stuff you have to look out for when you see in the text, but you have to make sure that it's actually clean. Because if your milk counter is not clean, and let's say you decide to rinse it out in your fleishik dish because it's a steak, you're rinsing off. You have to keep out for that. It's not a big deal because all you need to do is wash it out with cold water, that you don't cause any diffusion, right? But it's not really a big deal. And these are the questions that come up mamash a lot. My thing fell there. It's cold on cold to a large degree. It's nothing. You just got to make sure it stays cold. This is like the common question that comes in. And tell people, rinse it out with cold water and you're fine. Keep going. Because once you rinse it out with hot water, now you're causing a diffusion of flavor. So you want to rinse it out with cold water.
Because you wash something, you think people naturally
Say again?
they think hot because you have like a stain, you're gonna put hot water on, but if they put hot
Right.
water, then it makes it much.
And it makes it worse. Right. So that's what I always have to highlight when people call with the shilas.
Yeah.
Is rinse it out, cold water. You want to make machmer, use soap also, so you destroy the flavor, right? Just like some talon of gam, which we talked about, destroys the flavor. And if you really want to be machmer, rinse it out in the bathroom sink so it doesn't cause anything to come into your milk sink. But in reality, as we're learning here, cold and cold, nothing happens. Okay, the next thing we're going to learn is again another item that's meant to for as a preventative measure, which is not to put meat or cheese onto bread, unless you're going to be eating it then, because bread is the kind of thing you eat with other things. It's very difficult to remember. Oh, this bread had a piece of meat on it, and this bread had cheese on it. So don't
Question you can use if you have the bread on the table and you had meat, if you can then use that bread for cheese after.
Say again, if you have what?
If you have bread on the table and you use it for meat, I don't know if it's maybe it says somewhere else if you can use that for cheese after.
Okay, so the truth is that we're going to see that you can wash off bread also. In theory,
Sure, you could wash them.
you could.
Sure, you could do that.
Right?
That's true.
Solves the problem, you're not gonna want to eat it after.
Oh, so therefore,
Perfect
because of that, exactly. Basar, right? Because of the concerns, you might forget to wash it off, especially when it comes to bread. You don't want to wash your bread, right? Which is why the Pischei Tshuva writes that the washing off of the bread only works on the part of the bread that's actually the crust. But on the soft side, your washing off isn't going to help you anyway.
So it's like on Shabbos, that's the question. If you keep the challah when you have the meat, then it becomes
You have it
meat.
with your
If that was
cheese,
good.
eggs on Sunday.
No, it's a real problem. It's a real thing.
Right.
That's right.
You
Huh?
could chance the road if you cooked it at your house. It was big.
Okay, it's a different story, which we'll get to. The baking in the fleshik oven and what exactly that is. We're Chabad, we're a little more machmir than most. That's going to be a different story about how flavor is transferred in an oven, whether it was like enclosed, not enclosed, with the oven clean, not
Definitely
clean.
considered like meat equipment.
Right, but even so,
So you
okay,
can have it cheese.
again, we're quite machmir as we're going to learn when we get there.
Not just
But-
I think it's also
sorry?
It's not just love it. That's how it's like the
We're okay. We're machmir that even if it's even if nothing was in the oven,
yeah.
it won't make you meat, but we won't eat it with milk. But others will.
Same thing in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you cook muffins, whatever, anything in the fleshik oven,
Even when it's completely clean,
even when it's completely clean, it's considered meat equipment. You can have it after. You can.
but they won't eat it with. Okay, so it's the same thing. Okay, good. Anyways, back to the Pischei Tshuva. This is again, that's a different subject to get to. This is the question of transferring between one item and another, not in the case of cooking together. So the Pischei Tshuva makes the comment that washing will only work on the crust, on the hard side of the bread, but on the soft side of the bread, that's not gonna work. It'll actually make your bread just absorb more, not less. Okay, so that's something to be aware of. Okay. Did we cover that already? Yeah, there are situations where you could even eat it without rinsing off, as we're going to see in the Ramah of Sif Beis. The Ramah has been pretty consistent about this, right? He spoke about, for example, we noticed in Kufay, he talked about things like chametz on Pesach, which has no liquid whatsoever. So he was talking about being more lenient in those cases. He's going to say the similar thing over here, that if something completely dry, and especially if the utensil into which you're putting that dry item only ever comes in contact with cold, then you can even lechatchila do this. Now, when we get to the shir about halacha chazara l'maisa, we're going to talk about this because this is very common and an easy heter. Now, hope you understand this. For example, the Alter Rebbe speaks about this, that even if something absorbed, that even a vessel that absorbed something in heat, if it's cleaned out very well, you can at least temporarily use it for cold, even though it's liquid. So what's an example of that? Getting a beer at a hotel lobby, which isn't kosher. You're not doing it permanently, it's a one-time use, right? The glass even if we get with the stringent opinions that glass absorbs like the higher form. And the glass, for the most part, is actually used for cold, right? It's mostly used for, let's say, wine or other non-kosher
beer.
You
cocktails.
get special beer glasses.
But let's just say, well, okay, let's just say it absorbs. But even if it, sorry,
There's no.
you can't put up, like even if it's a handle, right? Even if, right, it absorbs heat. And let's just say that when it was washed out, it was washed out with non-kosher and absorbed somehow there.
Right.
Even if, which probably didn't, but even if it did, it probably was soap, which is like some kind of gum, right? But let's just say it did. But because what you're drinking, because it was cleaned out very well before they put the food in there, hopefully.
Yeah.
It was cleaned out well. And it's temporary. So it's a major lenience that you can rely on. You can have you can use those glasses. You want to be stringent, no problem, but it's not necessarily obligatory. But because because the leniency is limited to temporary use, there are those that will still keep separate cups in their house because that's permanent use, right? That's permanent use. Even though, to your point, if it's cups without handles, it's never used for cold. Never used for hot, I'm sorry. So is there reason to have your glass cups, which you're drinking seltzer water, orange juice, and any other cold power drink?
So not just.
Dishwasher.
not
So
just
really, there may
glass,
not even be a,
not
sorry,
just glass.
the dishwasher. But even there,
I know, that's your only thing.
Your
That's the
only concern maybe-
concern is that you have some meat on a plate and you wash it in the dishwasher and stuff.
and somehow in the soap, it absorbed into that
Exactly.
glass cup. The
Exactly.
likelihood is extremely low.
I know. I'm
Right?
just saying that's your only
So,
possible
like,
transference.
It's people are machmir and have separate cups, glass cups for milk inflation, but it isn't necessarily an absolute requirement. Again, we're going to discuss this later at the next year when we do our Chazar Lamaisa, but that's something that's going to come up.
Glass as an example, but it would be if it would be porcelain. It would
Same
still
thing.
be-
Same thing.
But
Right?
porcelain's the same thing.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So he's right. There's glass has a reason to be more makel, but as we're learning here,
Yeah.
over here, as we're learning here, is if these the Ramah himself is going to talk about something which is dry and put onto a vessel that only absorbs with cold. But the Shach, the Pri Megadim, and the Alter Rebbe are going to be more lenient. They're going to disagree with the Ramah and explain that even liquid you could put in there, especially if it's not permanently used. So I'm saying we're going to pass more lenient than the Ramah. Sorry, here in Sif Beis. Someone wants to be machmir because of the hate, but the Ramah and these leniencies are not only talking about glass, they're about anything. Correct? If the item is absorbing in cold,
dry.
but it's not the same thing as. This is going to get into the subject of like getting coffee from Starbucks or something like that, right? But there it absorbs hot, and you're drinking something hot, right? So there's reason to be much more. There's reason to be strict, unless you have confidence that they only use it for non-dairy coffee, right? They have lactose intolerant option, let's just say, right? But otherwise, you're running into a big problem. But in the case we're speaking about here, where you're drinking the cold beer, doesn't make a difference if it was glass cup or anything else. Correct. Okay. That covers this Aleph Beis and Gimel. Now, Daled begins to start talk about transference via heat. Yeah. We're there too. We're going to have the similar questions of, Tatal Gavar, right? That's going to come up. Yeah, Tatal Gavar. And taking off just the peel, very almost repetition of 105. What we are going to discuss here is something which we talked about a little bit when we learned 105, but the origin is here, which is a new detail that's going to come up, which is the question of how you deal with the peel when the bottom one is liquid. Right? So what did we learn? We learned that Tatal Gavar, the bottom one overpowers. So if the bottom is hot, we learned this in 105. The bottom is hot, top is cold, then the transfer and the flavor goes all the way through because the bottom is overpowers. If it's the other way around, bottom is cold, top is hot, falls in. So all you need to do is remove a klipa, just the surface layer of the one on the bottom. Let's just say. So now, in the case of meat and milk, you have a cold bowl of milk, and a hot piece of meat falls in. Yeah, so you take the peel off of the hot piece of meat. That's easy. What about the milk?
Milk is cold though.
It's cold. Doesn't matter.
So,
But you ordinarily, if it was going back to 105, you'd have to take a peel off,
alright,
right? But how do you peel off the milk?
can't.
Can't. It's a bowl. It's a bowl of liquid milk. So what's the halacha there? So the Shulchan Aruch actually is going to rule that the chalav is mutter. The milk is completely permissible. Yeah, completely permissible.
Yeah, you pulled it
Even
right away,
if,
you
sorry,
pulled it out right away.
Well,
How can you
who
do that?
cool it?
chalav mutter kulei. That's not that's the Shulchan Aruch is going to rule. But we're going to see different opinions. There are those that are going to say that you have to have 60 times the amount of what the peel would be.
The reasoning is that it can't be peeled.
You just can't be peeled. So the whole thing is diffused and gone. So the milk is completely mutter according to the Shulchan Aruch. But we're going to see other views that say you have to have 60 to the ratio
Interesting.
of what the peel would have been.
Interesting. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that. And if the meat's cold, you don't even have to. It says just wash it.
To me, it's cold and for sure just wash it,
Yeah.
right? But if we're talking about the meat's hot,
Hot.
right? This is the question of tatar gover, but the tatar gover is a liquid, right? Sorry, the cold tatar is a liquid.
And the
It's a
meat,
bowl of
I
milk.
guess the meat is not juicy, which to me it's like a dry,
It's a dry meat.
Dry meat, not something that's gonna miss. That's for.
Good point. Good point. If the meat is fatty,
It's gonna talk about that further.
right? That's gonna come up. Yeah,
Does time play a factor here?
the fatty meat's gonna come up with maliach. I don't think it's to talk about here, but again, tatar gover. Good question. What do we learn in 105? What do we learn in 105?
I would think if the meat's fatty, it's gonna transfer both ways. It's gonna transfer. It's gonna transfer.
No, because the bottom one cools off the top. It doesn't take out any flavor. Right? What do we learn in 105? What do we learn in cafe? Tatar gover and it's fatty.
Yeah, but I guess I think more like there. It's like where you don't have a liquid, right? You have two solids. You have a liquid.
But the liquid cools down because tatar gover, the liquid cools down the heat rather than the heat heating up the cold, right? That's the principle of tatar gover. Let's see.
I'm just curious though. Would time play a factor?
Yeah. Sorry?
Would time play a factor whether you've been there for a minute or in there for 10 hours?
Technically.
That's what I've asked. That's what I'm asking. If time will factor into this.
I don't think, one second, I don't remember fatty making a difference.
Well, yeah, you have 24 hours, and you're gonna get like pickling.
No, then you get pickling, right?
So-
Then you get pickling if it's 24
Right,
hours.
if
If
it-
it's there pickling.
No,
But
but
if it's-
it'd be like it's 105. If it's some kind of a liquid word absorb faster than if you hit that.
If it's okay, if it's seared, then it's 18 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. If it's brine. But if it's regular milk, I don't think it makes a
24
difference.
hours.
Next.
No, the next sif talks about salting. The next siman is going to be much more details about meat falling into milk and milk falling into meat. That's going to be in something base.
Next, talking about salting.
Correct.
It's the time that it takes for the licha.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But that's not so.
It's even longer. Licha is like half an hour.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a second. But that's not true of Sif Gimel, where it talks about just meat falling into the principle of tatar gover.
If,
I don't think that makes a difference when it comes to tatar gover. I don't think it does.
Dalit is.
If I'm wrong,
Dalit
don't
is
tell me.
meat's fault.
Sorry?
Dalit is meat's fault.
Yeah, Dalit. Hey is gonna be Maliyah. Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Making sure the one I'm looking at.
No, you got it right. You got it right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So now we're going to discuss what happens if you're supposed to peel it and you don't. The Shulchan Aruch is going to rule. The Ramah is going to rule that at the evidence okay. But others are going to be more stringent that you have to have 60 to the ratio of in other words, if you're supposed to peel it and you don't peel it. So Ramah says it's fine because the whole peeling is to begin with a stringency, and but the evidence you didn't do the stringency okay. But the Taz rules that it's only fine with the Eved if you have 60 in the rest of the meat. It's the ratio of the peel that you're supposed to take off. That's going to come up as well. Nonetheless, others are going to be lenient, and they should come up in the summaries, not in the text necessarily, but in the summaries it should be there. Okay. Okay, now that was Sif Daled. Sif Hey Vav gets to the question of Maliyach Kertuach, which we just finished learning. Salting is like scolding, sorry. And it's going to be the same source, same Gemara source as it was in 105. And there's going to be now, this here, we spoke about it a little bit then, which was what, first, before time it takes, what is the degree of salting that causes scalding, right? So we already mentioned, it wasn't in the text of 105, but when we learned 105, we made reference to what it talks about here, that there's a machlekes. The Shulchan Aruch writes that it's salted to the point that it cannot be eaten, right? But what exactly is that? So there are actually three opinions in the Rishonim, that is Rashi, Rabbeinu Yaakov, and Rabbeinu Yaakov Yisrael, and Rabbeinu Tam. Namely, opinion number one is you salt it, it's like the old form of refrigeration to maintain its freshness. And that is so deeply salted that if you want to eat it, you have to completely wash it off and rinse it out. Otherwise, it's too salty, right? So you salt it to preserve it, and then now you want to eat it. So you have to really, really wash it out very deeply. The next opinion is that the intention meaning here is it's similar, but a little less. You're salting it for the sake of your journey. So it's not like the first one, like Rashi, which is longer, deeper salting. This is a less deeper. And then there's even less, which is, and this is going to come up, and just to know the term, because the term is going to come up, which is, the term is malicha l'kadera, which means salting for a pot. Now, if you don't know the background, you're going to assume that salting for a pot means sprinkling a little salt the way you would for your pot. That's not what it means. It's a reference to the halachas of malicha, which the halachas of malicha, technically, in the Shulchan Aruch, come before the halachas of Basar b'chalav. So the Shulchan Aruch already expects you to know what the word malicha l'kadera means. We didn't learn that yet. So this is what it means. We're going to learn the laws of malicha like this, right? The principle of malicha is that you have to get the blood out of the salt, out of the meat, the blood that the Torah forbids us from eating. So the salt is used to extract that blood. Now, the meat that you buy in the market today is all maliach, is all salted on the same high level known as malicha l'kadera. But if you're salting your own meat, back to my grandmother, I think I mentioned last week, you're doing it at home. So it depends how you're going to cook it, and that will tell you the degree to which you have to salt it. If you plan on grilling that meat, and the grilling process itself extracts the meat, extracts blood, because there's no pot under it that's going to hold the blood. It's all going to spill right out. And the pores open up when you grill it, and all the blood will diffuse. So the salting for that is going to be, the salting that you need to do in preparation for grilling is much less than the salting you're going to do if you decide to cook that meat later in a pot.
But does it taste better? Is there a reason why today someone do that? Is there an advantage?
Yes, I only once did it. Because usually you're buying meat in the marketplace. But there was one time that I actually saw a few of us got together and we bought a live lamb and paid a shaychet to shecht it for us. And you only have to salt a little bit, as the halacha says, and then we put it directly onto the grill, and it's definitely juicier. It's definitely, you ever tried it? You have, okay, so there you go. Only once tried it. It's definitely juicier. But so malicha l'kadera here means that you salted it so deeply that now the meat is allowed halachically to be put into a kadera, into a pot. Not that you prepared it not that you salted it because the way you want what you're flavoring, but the halacha is required to salt it to the degree that you're allowed to put into a pot. That's what malicha l'kadera means, right? So that is the way the Shulchan Aruch rules in defining what it means that you're salting it to the point that you can't eat it.
The middle opinion is la'arfa. That would be
For the length, it's
for the actual.
malicha kein ibud, whatever. It's, sorry.
And that salting was less than
Then
first
salting
case?
for
That was
salting
less than
for a
the
long
first
journey.
case.
Yes, less
So,
because this one you just rinse off.
don't you say that our steaks, like the steaks in the store now, will probably be salting a little? It's not
No, because the mass producers just don't want you to, God forbid, people put their steaks in the oven as a roast. You put it into a pan and you put oil and whatever and leave it there. That would be kadera.
Okay.
And if they only grilled it, if they only salted it on the lower level, that would be a massive nichshel. That would be a huge stumbling block for people
Right.
eating blood that they're not allowed to.
Right.
But in theory, if you went to the shlachters and told the guy you're taking the steak just for the grill, maybe he'll salt it less for you. Yeah. You can get a little juicier steak if you want.
Strange.
Yeah. I wonder if there are restaurants that do that. I'm sure there are. Yeah. Okay, so that's the Shulchan Aruch, that's how the Shulchan Aruch rules. That it's the malika for kedera, that's the kind of salting, which means ordinary salting doesn't cause the kind of scalding that the Shulchan Aruch, that the halacha would prohibit to cause transference between the meat and the milk, right? But as we already know, our Rama is very concerned that we don't know what the line is, and therefore all salting he treats as extracting flavor unless there's a great monetary loss. But the Rama adds that the brine that's extracted from the meat that was salted, that brine is definitely salty enough that you can't eat it. That's why it's brine. In which case, even in a hefsem meruba, even in a case of great monetary loss, you can't be lenient because that's definitely actual salting, even on the high level of the Shulchan Aruch that the Shulchan Aruch requires. Okay. We're also going to have a discussion about whether you require salting on both sides or only one side. Rama rules only one side is enough and it's considered salting. Okay.
Mass factories don't have salting. They shouldn't get
Sorry,
salting these factories.
we're talking about for like the halacha of salting meat, taking out blood. Of course, it's salted everywhere. But the question is for the question of ratuah, for the question of extraction of flavor, does it have to be salted all the way around or just one side? Rama rules only one side is enough, as we're going to see. Okay. Now, similar to 105 again, we're going to have this question of whether it's only by fatty food or lean food. And then Ramahu says we don't know the difference between lean and fatty. And therefore, even lean food, we're going to say that it's transferring flavor. Same discussion is going to come up here. Another item that's going to come up here is the question of, okay, that's already something else. Okay, now the question of at what point does the salt become scalding, right? So we learned last week that we learned from some of the other acharonim from that sefer I use that as soon as it starts to produce liquid, we already treat it as if it's salting to the point that it's scalding. But not everybody is so stringent. Others say it's only once. No, sorry. Okay, so leave that alone. But the question is, at what point does it stop becoming scalding? So if you're of the view, like the Shulchan Aruch, that it draws out the blood, then it's possible there is such an opinion which would say that after the salt has been on the meat long enough that it will extract the blood in the halachic terminology of malicha, then it stops being scalding. Because it's no longer extracting anymore, it's done. However, as we're going to learn, shachantah is stringent, that so long as the salt is not washed off, it still has that scalding capacity. The Shulchan Aruch writes you have to actually soak it in water, not just wash it off, as we're going to see. Right? Now, the Ramah is actually going to be lenient here, not like the Shachantah. I'm sorry. The Ramah is going to be lenient here that it's implied, at least in the Ramah, that once it passes the time that it would extract the blood, it's no longer considered scalding, and therefore you could be lenient after that point if there is a great monetary loss. But before that, even if there is a monetary loss, you can't.
Meaning without rinsing?
Sorry? Yeah, when you consider that the flavor is transferring and it ruins the next thing. Or the meat flavor goes to the milk, let's just say. Or vice versa. The milk flavor goes to the blood, goes to the meat. So there's an interesting story that comes up here. And this is a principle in the halacha that's going to come at the end of Sivvav, where it talks about if you have great monetary loss and the mitzvah, you have reason to be lenient if the reason for transference was salting. Right? So the story is like this. It's a fascinating story. These things don't come up for us, but it's just interesting how these things play out. So the story is like this. I'm sorry, it's end of Sif Hey, not Sif Vav. All right, where is it? What he says about Makkah mitzvah. Sorry? Oh, before Sif Vav. So it's the end of Sif Hey, right? End of Sif Hey mentions this idea of when there's a great loss and there's a mitzvah, then you could be lenient if it wasn't salted, right? Oh, in this question about whether or not after it's done after it's sat there for the amount of time that the halacha requires salting, it is still considered scalding. So we're stringent to say that it is until you wash it off, like the Taz and the Shach just told us. But in the case of great monetary loss, if the transference happens after the thing was salted to the point of the amount of time it's required to extract the blood, then it's no longer scalding, and therefore you can be lenient, like those opinions in a case of great monetary loss and a mitzvah. So what was the story? The story was, fascinating story. There's a story, there's a bris milah. This actually happened. In the case of it's a Trumas Hadeshin. Actually, a Trumas Hadeshin sometimes wrote his own questions. So maybe it didn't happen. Okay. Anyway, Trumas Hadeshin is known for writing his own questions. Okay, maybe it didn't happen. But this is the story he describes. That there was a bris, and they salted lots of meat in one pot. And in there was also meat and avazat is geese. And after
And there's what?
everything was salted, and after
But there was meat and what else?
geese, avazot, right? It's geese. Geese.
Bird.
Like birds, the birds,
Duck.
geese.
Geese,
Huh?
yeah. Okay.
Like a duck, yeah. And after it's already salted, they mixed it in, so it's already been salted to the point of the way it's supposed to be extracted. But then everything all mixed together. The salt's still on it before they washed it off, and they're mixing it all together. Everything touched each other, and then they discovered that one of the geese turned out to be a treifa, and you don't have 60 and everything against that one geese. So the Trumas Hadeshin responds by saying that because there's a great monetary loss and there's a mitzvah happening here, there's a Seudas mitzvah, then you can rely on those opinions that say that once it's past the amount of time that's required for salting, it no longer has the capacity for scalding and make everything else complete, make it kosher completely. So that was the story. That's the background to the Ramah that we're going to learn in the end of Sif Hey.
It has to have both conditions.
Correct.
It's not or.
Okay, so the Shach
would be
discussed-
aware of
That's a
this.
good point. The Shach can discuss whether you have to have both conditions. And one condition, because the Shach actually is going to conclude to be more lenient.
The Ramah is both.
The Ramah puts both,
Yeah.
because that's the story of the Trumas Hadeshin. The Shach argues and says you could be more lenient, but he's going to say at the end that you should be stringent anyway.
So Trumas Hadeshin is before Ramah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, that's Sif, Hey, and Vav. So Zion gets to the question of roasting. Yeah, that comes the question of roasting. Again, very similar to 105. And in the case of roasting, then you require, right, if the bottom is cold, even if it's salty, or sorry, even if it's not so salty that you can still eat it, something hot falls on top of it, only a peel because the bottom is overpowered. But here we're going to add another detail that's not mentioned in 105, which is two other conditions, which is if the upper thing, the meat that's hot, that's falling into falling on top of the cold cheese, two more details are going to be added here, which is if the piece of meat has cracks in them that would allow absorption. A, B, if it is salted, if it itself has been spiced. If the meat itself has been spiced, now it's level charif,
So to clarify,
it's sharp,
so to
and
clarify,
it'll have stronger extraction flavor from the bottom.
not natural. Like when you say cracks, maybe that's a kind of here they translate it as slit. So that's
Slits.
it was cut for that.
Yeah,
And
it's
it
the
was
Kayyim-
cut to
The
absorb
kayyim
it.
literally means cracks,
Yeah, pores.
but pores, but not necessarily pores. Sorry,
Cavities.
Bakayim means like cracks. So let's just it's actually very common, not so uncommon. People will take a strip of meat and slice it on one side and the other side, so it opens up like an accordion.
Yeah. But
Right? that would be an example of this, where it's open and now it's going to be more. And let's say you already flavored it with all of your spices, right? And then it's going to be more extracting flavor. In which case, the whole thing becomes forbidden. Now the question is going to become: do you have to have both of those things, cracked and spiced, or is one enough to cause that higher level of absorption that is no longer usher just to appeal, but actually absorbs the whole thing to begin with? Look out for that.
We need to have shishim then in that case.
You'd have to have shishim, yeah. Yeah. So look out for that dispute as well. Now, if, however, so in this case, in 105, the bottom is usr and the top is mutter. In this case, both are mutter, they're just usr on contact, right? Because the bottom is milk and the top is a piece of meat, right? So what happens to this piece of milk, to the bowl of milk now?
Fine.
You have a hot grill that fell into cold soup or cold milk, and the milk is not salted, no?
You'd have shishim versus the.
So either it's completely mutter,
Yeah.
or you have to shishim versus shishim, you have to 60 to what the peel would have been,
Yeah.
right? Right.
That's what the people would have been.
Yeah. And that is pretty much an overview of the entire Siman.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of.
And then 8 is just the. Yeah.
Difference in Basar b'cholov.
Oh yes, that's an important thing. Yes, correct. That's right. So that's right. The big difference between Basar b'cholov and Taruvos is that Basar b'cholov is only usher on mixing,
Yeah.
and therefore, biblically speaking, you have to ask yourself, what is the biblically required mixing that makes the thing usher? And the biblically required mixing on usher is only cooking,
Yeah.
and therefore the other versions are only rabbinically usher. So the other versions being salting, pickling, right? That transference is only a rabbinic prohibition because flavor does transfer, but it isn't kind of mixing that the Torah forbids, right? And therefore, when basar b'chalav is only forbidden rabbinically, then it is permitted in benefit. You may have benefit from it, but you cannot eat it, which is an important thing with respect to milk and meat in general. You can take non-kosher meat and feed it to your dog. You may not be able to do so with milk and meat, because milk and meat is also ba'ana. But that's only if it's actually biblically usher, namely it was cooked together.
Right.
But if it's not cooked together, it's not biblically usher, then you can give it to your dog because it's only rabbinically usher. If the transference of flavor happened through pickling or through salting, it's not no longer biblically usher. Yes, that's an important detail, which we also spoke about in 105 actually as well.
Giving something to a goy is considered a no?
Yes.
You can sell it to them.
I'm saying because your dog is just something else. Your dog
Yeah.
has
So we'll get
goy that you don't know, you don't care. That's a no.
us in Lamdafka. Because the hana of giving it to a guy is what's called teves hana, which is now he owes you something. He owes you. So if it's the kind of person he doesn't owe you, it may not be considered hana.
Because like I know like Trafe wines and stuff like as far as like we'll smash it because like can't get like even but like you can't do
That's because of Yain Nesach. Because it's not a regular thing because the prohibition of wine is a question of avodah zarah. Yain Nesach is a borderline avodah zarah thing. So there's also a stringency of not having
Unless
a
you
no.
got Trafe food.
You sell it to.
Same.
No, you can't sell it to a guy.
Oh, all right. It comes today for they sell it to a guy.
You sell it to.
Trafe food you can sell to a guy.
Yeah,
That's
meat,
that's
meat
what
you can sell.
What's asabana? When is meat asabana?
different situations.
There are certain types of tefes that are asabana. Like what? Your father's involved in this? Your family's involved in shchita? Oh, you live in shchita. That's right. You told me that. Yeah. So what kind of tefes are asabana? Tell us. There are certain kinds of tefes that are asabana.
Comes up with
Meaning, if it's a sircha, it's not asabana. But if it's a full puncture, yeah.
some, yeah. I don't know, it has to do with the also.
Oh, okay. But not all trefas are avodah zarah question. Most trefas are not a avodah zarah question because trefa is not asabana. Trefa inherit not avodah zarah. It's a question of avodah zarah. It's a different story. Yeah. When would avodah zarah cross with trefa? I'm curious. I don't know.
India.
No, he's talking about in the shlachtas.
Oh,
Well, today they mass produce hundreds of cows
yeah.
are being shechted in one day. Out of the hundreds of cows, 60 are kosher. 40 became question of not kosher because the heart is punctured. So in most cases they sell it to the non-Jew. It's no big deal.
Exactly right. Is there a number coming up?
Yeah, so if you can find that, it'd be interesting. I'm curious to hear what the cost.
So it's like
Okay,
let's see
sorry?
Let's see you have a vodka that's not kosher. You can give it, there's no issue.
Yeah.
To away.
Only the
Sell it,
wine.
can you sell it to away?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, only the wine
That's
is
what
an
Jews
issue.
were doing in Europe. They were always with the alcohol. That was
That's right. The Jews who were owning the inns.
Yeah.
If they're doing it, selling alcohol, it's correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
and getting thrown
I
out of
was
town
curious.
because the guy owes him money.
That was the whole thing in Russia.
They're trying to
The
collect their
rich
debts.
people were the ones
They were
who
getting
had
thrown
that.
out of town because they want to Nebuch, a crime. They want to collect their money from the guy who was drank the last 3 months and didn't pay. So get thrown out of town, literally. Okay, so this week I'm going to be out of town, but I'm back Thursday. I'm not sure when I'm landing and if I'm going to be able to do the share Thursday night. I hope to be able to do Thursday night because clearly Thursday night is better than Friday morning for everybody. If I can't do Thursday night, with Hashem's help, I'll do it Friday morning. Okay.
Are we gonna switch the date of Thursday night or just?
Just because he's
We
already.
got a good, better showing Thursday night than Wednesday.
Yeah.
What?
But you take a vote.
Maybe just.
Maybe we'll take a vote in general if Wednesday or Thursday is better. The truth is I can
The
put it every week.
Huh?
One of the reasons I want to do Wednesday nights, because there's a color here Wednesday nights.
Right, that's what.
Part of the, and there's gonna be a ma'ariv with the color after the Wednesday night shir. So that might, so we'll leave it be for now. Okay, so either Thursday night or Friday morning.
Thursday night.
That's Lachar Rabban you're learning this week. And Baruch Hashem, I'm very happy with how this is going. Good day, buddy.